Good morning. We'll start off this morning with prayer, and then we'll get into our Bible study this morning. So, you guys would bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this morning you provided to us, this beautiful morning. We thank you so much for the change in the air, the time of the year. Lord, we are mindful of those that are not here with us this morning. We pray that you be with them, the ones that are sick, that are recovering from surgeries. We ask that you be with them and help them to be restored to a normal role of health where they can join us again. Lord, we pray that you continue to be with those who were affected by the hurricane, and we know that those relief efforts will continue for some time. We pray that we can help support those that are providing relief to them. We ask that you be with the communities of those around them, help them to rally around and lift them up. Lord, we thank you so much for this time together. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen. All right. So this morning we're going to continue. We've been looking at James. Mike and I have been going through the book of James. And we'll continue on. I'm going to actually be in the fourth chapter of James this morning. We'll skip back and forth though. So we'll keep your thumbs moving and your index ready so you can flip back and forth. So in the first three chapters, we've looked at what we've seen is maybe how James has written this letter, a certain style of it. So he brings up a topic early on, and then he swings back around again to kind of go a little more in depth with it. And he's written this is all about addressing behaviors. He sees things going on, or he hears about things that are going on that need to be modified. That's the word I can use there. There needs to be a change in what's being done. So he's writing this to address this behavior. And he's been pretty firm, but it's not, he lets them know what's going on, and then, like I said, when he circles back around to it, it's firm, but it's not anything kind of, out of the box. It's nothing crazy. So he's bringing it up to them though. So good example, James 1:26, over in chapter 1, he says that if one fails to bridle his tongue, he does what? Deceives his own heart. You get into chapter 2, verse 13. If you have judgment with no mercy, then what's going to happen to you? No mercy. So you won't be shown mercy. So it's these points that he's making. Chapter 3, verse 14. Those that give in to the envy and selfishness, they boast and they lie against the truth. So the language in chapter 4 kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of turns up a couple of notches. So when he starts through, I'm going to read from the New American Standard, James 4:1-3. What is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is not the source your pleasures that wage war in your members? You lust and do not have, so you commit murder. You are envious and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. So looking at this first part, the pursuit of earthly pleasures is the source of their quarrels, of their conflicts. But the way that James portrays it, this is more than a disagreement. I made a note. We've all had disagreements with the people that we interact with. This could be a family, co-workers, brothers and sisters in the church, even perfect strangers. Sometimes you just seems like somebody either catches you or you catch them at a bad time, whether it's in the car, in the parking lot trying to get to a parking space, or something like that. You could be with somebody that you don't even know. You may have a conflict with them. But most of the time when we have a conflict with somebody, unless it's something pretty severe, they'll come up, and then over time they kind of die a natural death. They just go away. It's something that comes up. It's a point right now, and then it just kind of smooths itself off, and that's the end of it. Now, obviously, it's better if we could recognize it and then go and fix it. So we recognize that there's an issue, and then we want to seek to put those to rest. But when conflicts keep growing, when they don't die out over time, when they don't calm down with the passing of time, it's different. Have you ever felt like somebody had a chip on their shoulder when they did? Right? Just somebody has it in for you. As a kid, there were teachers that I thought pretty much had it in for me. And not just as a kid, even in college. I had a couple of professors that I was can't do right. Nothing I did was gonna work. And I'd go and talk to them and ask for help or say, hey, what do you think I can do to prove this? I think one time I was told, I don't know if there's anything you can do. And it was, the word used sounded like it was kind of bold and underlined when it came across. So, that's something that it does seem like it happens. Or sometimes we're the person with a chip on our shoulder. So we've had an issue, we've had a bicker with someone in our family or someone that we work with or we go to church with, and when we see them, it's just, I'm ready. I'm ready for them to say something, do something. And that being on edge, it puts you in a bad position with that person. It puts you ready to quarrel, ready to have a conflict, even if maybe they thought it's died down, you've held on to it and you've saved that up. But when you think about how this happens, about unresolved conflicts, or when it's happened to me, like I said, it was either maybe I felt like I got wrong on purpose. Somebody did something to me intentionally. It felt that way. Or maybe it was just that I was carrying baggage around with it from something that had happened previously. So as soon as I saw that person, and the phrase, chip on your shoulder, that's when the chip came out. I saw him and I put it there, and I dare you, just come on over here and bump me. Just knock it off. Give me a reason to be upset about it. And that's what, when we think about quarrels and conflicts, that may be something that comes up, but James doesn't just stop with quarrels and conflicts. He escalates the description in the last half of verse 1. And he changes it from their quarreling to their waging war against the members. So it's gone up a notch. It's something that's more than just a quarrel or a conflict. So when you think about waging war, what do you picture? Waging war within the church, within the members. What do you picture? Sure, everybody being quiet this morning? Now, when I think about waging war, there's going to be casualties, right? War is it's not just a verbal thing sometimes. When I think about waging war, there's going to be a casualty. There's going to be a loss. And, could that mean that these could lead to somebody leaving the church?
You mentioned waging war is battle. The waging part is sort of like trying to build your army, your coalition, your team, whatever.
So building it up, you're building your forces, you're digging in, you're getting entrenched, you're acquiring your armament, you're recruiting your army, you're waging war, you're preparing for battle. So you spending time and energy. I mean, that's not not necessarily a physical energy, but it's an emotional energy. You're inputting yourself, you're devoting yourself to time. And that's what you've chosen to devote yourself to. So you're building up against brothers and sisters, and you're building up against them so that you can. Like I say, it's to wage war. And so when I think about that, and I think, could that lead to somebody leaving the church for good? Come back to you. Just throw your hand up. You're close enough. You can throw a pencil or something up here. Reset. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Right. So, and like I said, the kind of example, I've got the chip in my pocket. I've already decided what I'm going to say when they say something. I just wait. But if they, he's got it. Go ahead. Well, so he's talking about the differences between the social status, the economic status of the makeup at that time, where you had wealthy and you had poor in the same groups, and so the desire to have what others have. And we'll actually get to that here a little bit further, because that may be a source for some of it. But back to what you were saying, that's interesting that we prepare ourselves for, if they say this, I'm going to say that. If they say this, I'm going to say that. A lot of times, I think that kind of stays internal. But we work ourselves up that way. We actually, get bristly inside and outside, waiting for just let it happen. Okay. So that's good. I should have called Lance yesterday. And so he was saying that the root word for wage war is the word that we get the word strategy from. So this is the plan of what I'm going to do. As Dave mentioned, as you mentioned too, that's the piece of it that we spend time trying to figure out what we're going to do. And then the second piece of it, and as Dave mentioned as well, you then spend time to recruit others, to get people to side with you. This is what's been happening to me. This brother or sister has done this, and I think it's wrong. And you think it's wrong, and we should, we may have to talk to them. And you start amassing that strategy and build that group. Right. Sure. So there's a hesitancy to do it at church, but we feel more comfortable doing it to our family, which is, it's just a bad thought, but it's true, or our coworkers. So more comfortable with, I guess, lashing out against them or building up against them. If we move on and we look in verse 2, James says they're lusting and they cannot obtain, so they commit murder. They're envious, so they fight with each other. So this would kind of prove it. So there's burn.
May I bring something up before we get there?
Please.
We were looking at this here, and it says war within our members, and it was indicating
And because that, like you said, that waging, that strategy, that planning, this is where I'm going to go, this is what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to get what I'm going to have. So, yes. Right. And that's something that James keeps addressing, is that it's the things that the worldly desires that we have, constantly pull our sight off of God. We go from, when we're in the moment, we think about it, we're looking to God, and then there's things that are happening down here around us, and that's what we start to focus on. And we're not looking in the right direction. So yeah, that was back in chapter 1. So 1 and 14. So, but like I said, so when I'm reading this and I'm thinking, is it, it says murder within the church. And so like I said, we have this, Mike and I have this companion book, and there was a little bit of explanation in here that I was glad to read. If we look back at a couple of verses prior to this, so chapter 2, verse 1. Chapter 2, verse 1, James is covering what kind of issue? Respect of persons, partiality, favoritism, the favoritism of the rich. If you looked in that same chapter, verses 14 and 17 of chapter 2, and Mike had talked about this, and we've talked about this a couple of times since then. Faith without works. So, there's some issues get brought up. Chapter 3, verse 8. That's back to controlling the tongue. So, these seem, when I look at these three examples, they seem like common issues. Common then, common now. Like I said, partiality or favoritism, or we have faith, but we don't do anything to back it up. We don't have works, or controlling the tongue. These are things that to me seem, like I said, it's a common issue to address. And so, I was really starting to question, was a problem that was happening at the time of this, were they really having problems with folks killing each other, murdering each other within the church? And like I said, it seemed a little out of place, and so I was reading in the guidebook, and it shed a little light on maybe why the word, the word choice or murder is used. And it says that, consideration is that some of this may be hyperbole. So if I remember back to their English class, I had an English class in college, but my last real English class was in high school. So hyperbole. So they're over-exaggerating to try to make a point. Was the thought behind this is that maybe that's what's going on. And then it used an example. It said, chapter 2, verse 5. There's a statement about the poor. So, what does James say in chapter 2, verse 5 about the poor? What's going to happen to the poor? God has chosen them to be what? Rich in faith. So, just because you're poor, you are automatically rich in faith. That's how, it's just kind of how it's written. And so the idea is maybe what he's doing is he's using an over-exaggerating. When it talks about the tongue, the tongue itself, James describes as a world of iniquity, and it sets on fire the course of nature. So, have you ever over-exaggerated to make a point? I'm sure most of us have. Right. Right. And so that comment was, hating your brother is murder. It's not the physical act of murder, but it's the equivalent.
I wonder if that murder in 4:2 is not connected with James 5:5 and 6, where it says, "You have lived lusciously on earth and led a life of wanton pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous man. He does not resist you." I wonder if it's like more, not maybe hyperbole, but as well as more related to killing off the soul.
Right. Yeah, you've killed me spiritually. You've cut me off, you've shut me down, you've driven me away. I agree. I thought I saw another hand up. Yes, sir.
I've been a member of the church since I was 15 years old, and I don't remember anybody ever killing anybody else in church, although it did happen after I left the congregation that I came up here, there was a murder inside the church. One of the brothers killed another one of the brothers, and one of the sisters. But that was a real bad situation. But that's an actual murder that took place there. But I think here you might be talking about character assassination, where I'll lean over here and tell Jerry, well, you know about old so-and-so over there. Did you know that so-and-so about so-and-so over there? You know, that I think that may be sort of what James is alluding to here, is character assassination as opposed to what happened in my own congregation.
Right.
On that. We had here in this congregation conflict 3 or 4 years ago when the elders set out and settled it. We lost about 50 members, and we're just now arriving back at the numbers in attendance that we had prior to that conflict. So we don't really want to have any serious conflict among the brothers and sisters. You know, it just doesn't work good for the body.
Right.
So that things don't go right. You know, the Lord is not well served.
Right, when we're divided against each other.
Yeah.
And you think that, as people quarrel and there's conflict, the callousness starts. That builds up on your heart.
Trying to elevate themselves over Jesus being the poor and the humble, and he hung out with that crowd. That's sort of, if I want to follow Jesus, that's sort of the crowd I'm going to be hanging out with.
Right.
Humble with myself, and don't try to exalt myself.
Right. Well, I actually touch on that too. That's coming up, in this same chapter. James talks about that.
Yeah.
So, and it's, the great thing about the word that we've been given is all the instructions are there, and so when you think about what do I do, what should I do, it's in there. You just have to go to it and let it guide you. So that's a good point. And I was thinking about this and thought, so the art of writing letters is something that's a handwritten letter. It's kind of gone away sometimes. We write people cards, but most people don't communicate writing letters, at least in the United States. So it's an email, maybe a phone call. I'm still a phone call person. I prefer to hear their voice over text or typed text. And one of the reasons may be if you over-exaggerate in a verbal conversation, it's usually pretty obvious that what you're saying is that way. If you were to have like somebody that followed you around and they transcribed everything you said, they just wrote it down. And when unless they were able to put commentary in there, I've had a conversation with my boys before, and I asked what I thought was a fairly simple question. It was going to be, when you boil it down to it, yes or a no. I got 3 sentences of beginning explanation, a couple of sentences in the middle of what I thought might have been the yes or the no, and then a follow-up 2 or 3 3 sentences of explanation of the first 5 sentences. And I uttered the phrase, "You're killing me." You know. So if you look at the transcription of my conversation with my kids, you know, like I said, without explanation, you go back and so that was kind of the guidance point of, you know, is this literal murder, or what you're saying is, are you killing brothers and sisters spiritually? Are you cutting them off, as Dave mentioned, you're shutting them down? But I thought that was an interesting take on what was happening and how it was viewed. So the first 3 verses of chapter 4 have really focused in on the desire for pleasures. We want what we don't have, and the reason why that it's not given to us is because when we ask for it, it's asked for from a place to satisfy our own earthly pleasures, not to glorify and uphold God's will. So when they do ask for things, it's not given to them. We've talked about that this group. There was a lot of poor Christians at the time. There was probably more poor than wealthy at the time. The poor were very receptive to the message that Christ brought. Christ himself would go to the poor, go to the humble, as Leon mentioned. So the issues that were coming up, though, when these folks were looking for blessings, they were looking for blessings from the rich around. That was the issue that brought up, that they were trying to get the crumbs, but the crumbs didn't come free. When it talks about what's going on, what's the price for the crumbs that they're getting from the rich, this favoritism that they're showing, what's it cost them? How much do the crumbs cost? When you think about you're trying to be economical, how much I want the most food I can get for my money. They were paying a high cost for a little crumb. So these crumbs were causing them conflicts among themselves because they were favoring the rich over the poor, rich over each other. Part of the payment is the harsh words between the brothers and the sisters. So you've got conflict, you've got hurt feelings, you've got harsh words. And then, the ultimate cost for them. So they're aligning themselves with the rich to get some kind of earthly reward, some earthly pleasure, some whatever favoritism. So James mentions that now you've made a friend of the world, so you've made an enemy of him, an enemy of God. So that's what these were costing. And since they were lacking material and spiritual prosperity, what should they have been doing? When we think about this, they should have, what they should do, they should ask God for wisdom. And James talks about that, but they should ask God for wisdom, and then that wisdom can give them the right heart, the right mind. When they pray for God to bless them, they'll be blessing them for the right reason. It'll be blessing them so that they can help somebody else, or so that they can make sure that they're doing what God wants them to do. And when you keep moving on in chapter 4, in verses 4 through 6, talks about seeking favor with the world and how it affects us in our relationship with God. So 4 through 6, like I said, this is New American Standard. It says, "You adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you think that the Scripture speaks to no purpose? He jealously desires the Spirit which He has made to dwell in us. But He gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble." So he starts this little section off and basically says, he gives them a label. If you have chosen friendship with the world over God, you're an adulteress. you're an adulterer. You have committed yourself to God. You've studied the Word. You've confessed that He is the one true God, His sovereignty, His power. You've been baptized, and now you've turned your back. Now you've in our marriage, they strayed. So they've committed themselves to God initially, and now they've turned away. So they are pursuing a relationship with the world instead of pursuing a relationship with God. And so they get the label of committing adultery. And seeking those material things from God or from man in order to fulfill our own pleasures. That's pursuing the flesh instead of pursuing the Spirit. And James makes a point of that. Now, the next verse, James 4, verse 5. So I'm reading, I've read different versions of this same verse, different translations, or versions, English Standard Version, New American Standard, the King James, the New King James. And the companion book, evidently, so I'm not a studier of the Greek language. I don't know the root word in the Hebrew. There's things I just don't know. So when I read through the book, it says that James 4:5 is one of the most difficult verses in the Bible to translate. And certainly the most difficult in the book of James. So when I read that verse, verse 5, and like I said, I read it from the New American Standard. It says, "Or do you think that the Scripture speaks to no purpose? He jealously desires the Spirit which He has made to dwell in us." What comes to mind? What comes to mind when you? I guess when I read the New American Standard verse, that He jealously desires the Spirit which He has made to dwell in us. What comes to mind? You think? For me, the way that's written, for me, it makes me think of Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, in the King James. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When I read, His jealousy desires the Spirit which He has made to dwell in us. Or I also have written down Exodus 34:14. "For thou shalt worship no other God. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God." And so when I read that version, that's what it makes me think of. Can somebody read the King James version of verse 5? Oh.
King James Version. I'm just going to say, when you're talking about spirit, we're talking about attitude. So that's what, here's what I find attitude.
Right, so every time like I said, I'm reading all these different versions of this, and they're all written a little different. Is the S in Spirit capitalized? Is it not? Is the He in He jealously desires? Is it capitalized? Is it not? And I went through a bunch of different versions, but did you read the King James version? So, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth. So that definitely sounds different than the other version. And it commented on that, the translation, because of some grammatical things within the language, may differ some. But it makes the point that, our human nature is to seek things of the world. Because we have free will, and this like Jocelyn mentioned, it's the Spirit within us. That this human nature, this tendency for us to seek things of the world, even though we have free will, God gives us the choice, and then we have to choose to remain obedient. So it's out there. We're able to choose, follow God, follow the world. But the desire is that we would always follow God. But our human nature seems to drag us the opposite way. It's a conscious decision that we have to make to follow God all the time. if you turn on you turn off the consciousness of it, and you just let the human nature take over, we obviously will stray, we'll go another direction. So we're constantly showing our faith, showing our belief by constantly choosing to follow God and follow what He wants us to do. And turn our back on the world. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at all of the scriptures that we've addressed so far. And in looking at that, it's basically telling us to be mindful of the fights that we have going on within ourselves. That's within the body, within us, in the sense of our desires, our pleasures. Because we are striving to acquire or to obtain our pleasures, we are focused on one desire. We're focused on trying to get that. And in so doing, He calls us in verse 4, He calls us adulterous because we are not following in the pattern that God would desire us to follow. And then He goes on and He says in verse 5, and the latter portion of verse 4, He says we are friendships with the world. So that means that we are enemies with God. And then He says, do you think or do you suppose that, if so, let me just read the English Standard portion. It says, or do you suppose it is to no purpose that the Scripture says, He yearns jealously over the Spirit that He has made to dwell in you? In that manner, the Spirit that He's given us a couple, in the sense of the Spirit, in the sense of our breath, us being able to say, breathe and become a moral agent. And then we continue on, and as we continue to be obedient, we are also given the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. And in this manner, based upon this particular translation, English Standard, it appears to me that he's speaking about him yearning about the Holy Spirit, which is being, I'll put it in my term, being stuffed or quenched, being pushed away.
Wow, yeah.
And we are desiring the things of the world. So, looking at it as a whole, it seems like it's all coming together. It don't seem like there's a confusion there.
Sherry in the back.
The scripture says, house of God you cannot stay. And He also says you cannot serve both God and man. The Spirit does. You're jealous of Him. We have one look. You cannot split little things where you cannot stand.
Right. That's the idea too. That we talked about earlier. You can focus on God, or you can focus on the world, but you can't do both. You made a choice. You had to pick. You had to pick one master. As you said, you can't serve two masters. You love one and you hate the other. So, and flipping back and forth is the double-mindedness that Jamie talked about too. It's I want to be godly minded and I want to be worldly minded, and I'm trying to flip back and forth between the two. You can't do it. One of the other things that it mentions was around hard to translate was because the wording that gets used is the Scriptures. It says, "Do you think that the Scriptures saith in vain?" And that calling out of the Scripture saith, and then what followed it isn't necessarily a direct quote from the Old Testament or from previous Scripture, and that may cause some confusion in how it's translated, maybe exactly why the wording was picked. But that was one of the things around it. Now, when you look at verse 6, so verse 6 tells us to do what? Or it tells us that God does what? Verse 6 says that God resists the proud, gives grace to the humble. And here, James kind of previews real quick. This is what happens, and this is why. And we're running a little short on time, but James 4, 7 through 10, where it continues, says, "Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be miserable, and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He will exalt you. So, Brother Leon was talking about earlier, as you try to build yourself up, earthly, human, man, that's the building that's done by man. When you read this, it definitely goes through some things that we're supposed to do to receive God's grace. Submitting to God, resisting the devil, drawing close to God. Some of this is a little harsh sounding. When you read it, He wants you to be miserable and mourn and weep, to turn your laughter to mourning, to turn your joy to gloom. But the idea is to humble yourself. And it makes me think of, if I can humble myself to the point where God's going to lift me up. Who could lift me up higher than God? At the end of a football game, you see somebody's made the winning catch, or it was a great throw, or the kicker, at the last second pulled it out and they win. They hoist them up on their shoulders and they're parading them around. They're showing everybody, hey, this is the person that helped us win. And if we can humble ourselves, God Himself will hold us up. He'll exalt us. As an example, as somebody who followed what He said. It's one of the verses that comes to mind when I think about the end of that. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He will exalt you. I think of Romans 8:31, and if God is for us, who could be against us? If God exalts us, that's the ultimate. That's the goal. The exaltation of man from other men, the pride and honor and praise that we get from the people around us isn't what we're supposed to be after. And if we can humble ourselves to God, He'll lift us up. So I thought that was, when you read through that section from 7 through 9, it seems to be pretty tough, and then you actually hear in 10 exactly what you get from it in 1. So I appreciate everybody's comments this morning. I guess we'll get ready to start services here.